In the middle of the silent chamber, the young ambassador stood alone. Her name was Alara, a woman chosen not because of her power or rank, but because of something strange, something other species never understood: her emotions. She felt too deeply, too strongly. And the alien council had mocked her for it from the first day she entered their halls. The council chamber was filled with alien races. Tall figures with metallic skin, others with glowing eyes, some who communicated only through vibrations in the air. They looked at her like she was a weak child sent into a world of giants. Humans, one of them hissed. A long-necked creature whose voice slithered like a knife. You are soft. Your people are driven by feelings. Emotions will destroy you. Another alien leaned forward, his eyes burning with cold light. Logic builds empires. Reason wins wars. Humans cannot survive with your foolish hearts. The chamber filled with cruel laughter, the sound echoing like metal scraping stone. Alara stood still, her fists tight, her heart pounding against her chest. They didn't see it, the strength hidden inside her people. They thought emotion was weakness. They didn't know emotion could be fire. For weeks, Alara had listened to their insults. She had tried to explain that humans were not weak, that their feelings gave them power to rise again when crushed, to fight when hope seemed gone, to protect those they loved even against impossible odds. But the council never listened. On this day, they went too far. A massive screen came alive in the center of the chamber, showing images of destruction. A human colony world was burning. Alien war machines tore through cities, crushing towers, scattering fire into the sky. Millions of her people screamed, their voices cut short by fire and steel. Alara gasped, her body trembling. She could almost hear the cries of the children, the panic of the families trying to escape. Her throat burned as tears fell down her face. The council only smirked. "Do you see, human?" the same long-necked alien said with a cruel smile. "This is the cost of your emotions. Your people fight because they care. They die because they love. Cold logic would have kept them safe. But you humans are too blind to see it." Alara turned toward them, her eyes shining with fury through the tears. "Safe," she whispered. "You call that safety? You sit here in your stone halls while children burn? You feel nothing, and you dare call that strength?" The chamber grew quiet. The aliens leaned back, surprised at the fire in her voice. "You think emotions make us weak?" she continued, her voice rising. "But you are wrong. Our love makes us stand when others fall. Our rage makes us fight when others surrender. Our hope gives us strength when all light is gone." She slammed her hand against the table, the sound echoing. "We are not weak. We are human." The silence broke into cruel laughter again. One alien even clapped his claws together mockingly. "Brave words, little human," he sneered. "But words do not win wars. Show us your strength, if it is real." Her lips tightened. "Be careful," she said softly, her voice shaking with restrained fury. "You mock the fire you do not understand. But one day that fire will burn you." The council dismissed her with waves of their hands, but Alara did not sit down. She stood tall, trembling but unbroken, staring at the screen of burning cities. She felt helpless, yet deep inside, something awoke, stormed back on Earth. The signal of destruction reached military command. Humanity's leaders watched the same burning images, and silence filled the war room. Not silence of despair, but silence before the storm. One commander whispered, "They mock us because they don't understand. They believe emotions are weakness." Another leaned forward, his voice sharp as steel. "Then let them see what happens when humanity fights not for logic, not for conquest, but for rage and love." Orders began to move across the fleet. War legends were recalled, hidden ships were awakened, names whispered like ghosts of fire and thunder. Humanity was not yet at war, but the fury of a single ambassador had lit a spark across every heart. Alara wiped her tears, unaware that across the galaxy her words had already changed everything. The council believed they had silenced her. Instead, they had awakened the fury of an entire species, and soon The galaxy would learn what it truly meant when humanity fought with its heart. The stars were quiet when the fleet began to wake, in the dark hangars of Earth. Massive ships that had not moved for decades powered on one by one. Engines roared like sleeping beasts rising from deep slumber.
Oh.
The air shook as steel giants came alive and across the planet. People stopped to watch as the sky filled with light. On Earth's surface, crowds gathered on rooftops, staring at the streaks of fire that cut across the heavens. Families held hands, children pointed with wide eyes. Soldiers saluted as each ship rose into orbit. Their hulls carrying names whispered in legends: Resolute, Guardian, Valiant, Fury. Every name was carved with sacrifice, carrying stories of battles where humanity had stood against the impossible and refused to die. Now those legends had returned, not as memories, but as weapons of fury. Alara stood at the central command station, her heart pounding as she watched the fleet assemble above Earth. She had been called back from the Alien Council. No longer just an ambassador now. She was the spark that carried humanity's rage. Beside her, Admiral Kale, an old warrior with scars across his face, stared at the screen showing the burning colony world. His jaw was set like stone. "They mocked us," he said in a low voice. "They thought emotions made us weak. They thought wrong." Ilara nodded, though her hands trembled. "They don't understand us. They've never fought for love. They've never fought with fury." Kale's eyes burned with cold fire. "Then we will teach them." The first fleet moved out, dozens of ships forming a wall of steel that stretched across the void. Smaller escort craft danced around them like hunting wolves, scanning for enemy signals. Humanity had no intention of waiting. They would strike first, but far from Earth, in the halls of the Alien Council. Laughter still echoed. The long-necked alien who mocked Alara stood before his allies, watching the reports of humanity's fleet rising. "Look at them," he sneered. "They rush to war, blinded by anger. They will burn themselves out. Logic always wins. Emotion always fails." The cold-eyed alien beside him tilted his head. And yet, human fleet grows faster than expected. Their production lines move with desperation. They have awakened reserves we thought were gone. The long-necked one only smiled. "Let them come. We will crush their fire and show the galaxy what becomes of those who trust feelings over reason." Backed through the war hangar, they looked up at her as she passed, not with mockery, not with doubt, but with a fire in their eyes that matched her own. One soldier, his armor marked with scars from past battles, stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "we heard what you told the council. Heard how they laughed at you." She swallowed. "And you think they were right?" The soldier shook his head, his voice strong. "No, they called emotions weakness. But you made us remember why we fight. We fight for our families, for our children, for the ones who can't fight for themselves. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing there is." Elara's chest tightened. For the first time, she felt the weight of her words, the spark that had already lit a fire across every soldier, every pilot, every family waiting at home. She whispered, "Then let us show them what humanity's heart can do." The fleet surged forward. Engines screamed as ships cut through the void heading for the colony world still under siege. The enemy ships circled the burning planet like vultures, their metallic wings blotting out the light of its sun. Humanity did not wait. The first strike hit fast, an explosion so bright it turned the night into day. Enemy war machines reeled, their shields cracking under the fury of human fire. Human ships dived in packs, weaving between enemy cannons, striking with precision and rage. For the first time, the galaxy saw what it meant when humans fought not for conquest, but for love. Their ships moved like extensions of their hearts, reckless yet unstoppable, driven by something no machine could calculate. On the enemy command ship, alarms blared. The long-necked alien's smile faded as reports poured in. Human ships should have fallen by now, but they did not break. They only fought harder, even when outnumbered. Impossible, the alien muttered, his voice shaking for the first time. They fight as if they are already dead, yet still alive. On the battlefield. Alara's voice rang out through the command channel, reaching every human pilot, every soldier. They called our emotions weakness. They mocked our tears. But today, let them learn our fury. Fight for every life they tried to take. Fight for every child, every family, every heart. Her words lit the fleet like fire. Ships charged, soldiers roared, and across the void, the enemy began to break. For the first time, the galaxy felt something it had never known before. The unstoppable wrath of humanity's heart. The battlefield burned with fire and wreckage. Human ships cut through the enemy lines, leaving trails of destruction. Explosions flashed across the void like dying stars, painting the darkness in red and white. But for every enemy ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. The alien fleet was larger than anyone had guessed, their war machines built with cold precision, endless in number. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his hands gripping the edge of the command table. Sweat ran down his face, but his voice was steady. Hold the line. Push them back from the colony. Do not let them land again. Pilots screamed confirmations through the comms, their voices hard, unbroken. They fought with fury, but Kale Nurage alone would not win. Humans had fire, but the enemy had numbers. Alara stood behind him, her heart pounding as the battle raged outside. Every explosion felt like a blow to her chest. Every cry of a fallen pilot echoed in her ears. She wanted to scream, to rush out there herself, but all she could do was watch. Then the reports came. Enemy reinforcements inbound, 30 more warships. Shields failing on the Valiant. We are losing fighters too fast. Kale's jaw tightened. The fleet could not retreat. If they left, the colony would be lost, and millions more would die. But if they stayed, they risked being destroyed entirely. Alara saw the weight in his eyes. She felt his fear, though he hid it well. For a moment, doubt clawed at her. Had she doomed them all by igniting this war? But then, across the comms, a pilot's voice broke through, steady, determined. This is Eagle Wing, Squadron 3. We're not backing down, not while our people are still alive on that planet. Another voice followed. Squadron 5 reporting. Even if we fall, we'll take as many of them with us as we can. The comms filled with voices, one after another, soldiers and pilots shouting their fury. Not one of them spoke of surrender. Not one. Ilara's eyes burned with tears, but this time they were not tears of fear. They were fire. Humanity was outnumbered. Outgunned, but not one heart wavered. She turned to Kale, her voice shaking but firm. They will not stop. Even if every ship here burns, they will fight until nothing is left. That is our strength. Kale looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Then we will give them the chance, he barked an order, and the fleet shifted formation. Human ships moved closer, locking shields together, creating a wall of steel and light to shield the colony below. Fighters darted between the massive holes, striking like blades of fire. The enemy struck again and again, pounding the human wall. Ships shook, shields cracked, flames ripped through holes. But the wall did not fall. On the colony's surface, survivors looked up through the smoke of their broken cities. They saw the human fleet above, battered but unyielding, standing between them and death. And hope, fragile and trembling, began to rise in their hearts. But the enemy commander was not done. On his massive flagship, the long-necked alien hissed. In fury, enough. Break them now. He ordered the release of their deadliest weapon, colossal siege ships armed with planet burners, designed to erase worlds in fire. 3 of them emerged from the darkness, their weapons charging with blinding light. Ilara's breath caught. If those weapons fired, the colony would be gone in seconds. Kale slammed his fist against the command table. All ships target the siege craft. We cannot let them fire. The fleet shifted again, pouring fire into the massive weapons. Explosions scarred their hulls, but still the siege ships advanced, their cannons glowing brighter, ready to unleash death. And then, out of the silence of deep space, new signals appeared. Dozens of them, hundreds. Ilara's eyes widened as screens, lit up with fresh contact ships rising from hidden stations, vessels once thought lost. Fleets recalled from the far edges of human space, the Guardian, the Iron Flame, the Stormbreaker, names from history, ships believed to be gone forever. Now, burning through the void toward the battle, the Cums erupted with voices. This is the Second Fleet arriving for battle. Third Fleet reporting, ready to engage. This is the Outer Colony's defense line. We fight with you. Kale's face broke into a grim smile. So, humanity has answered. Laris. Chest tightened as tears blurred her vision. It wasn't just one fleet. It wasn't just one planet. It was all of humanity, rising as one. The siege ships turned their cannons, but before they could fire, the new human fleet struck. Missiles screamed, cannons roared, and the sky became fire. The Council had mocked her tears. The enemy had mocked her heart. But now, the galaxy was about to see what happened when humanity fought together, not with cold logic, but with the fury of every soul united as one. And this was only the beginning. The battlefield had changed. What once looked like humanity's last stand now became a storm of steel and fire. Reinforcements poured in from every direction, filling the void with ships, old vessels, new warcraft, hidden reserves long kept in silence. All of them had returned. The galaxy had never seen humans gather like this. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his voice echoing across every channel. This is the day we show them who we are. Hold the line. Strike with everything you have. For Earth, for the colonies. For humanity. A roar answered him, millions of voices united. Across the fleet, Ilara gripped the railing, her heart racing as she stared at the screen. The enemy's massive siege ships still loomed, their cannons glowing with deadly light. If even one of those weapons fired, the colony below would vanish in flame. Focus fire, Kale shouted. Bring them down before they fire. The first wave of human ships struck, swarming the colossal machines like furious wasps. Missiles slammed into their armor, cannons ripped across their hulls. Explosions bloomed, but the siege ships pushed forward, shields holding, cannons growing brighter. The long-necked alien commander hissed from his flagship, his voice echoing across the enemy fleet. Crush them, show them what reason brings. Burn their colony. Burn their hope. The siege cannons reached full charge. Light flared brighter than a star, blinding the human fleet. Ilara's chest tightened. No, but at the last second, a human ship broke formation. It was the Valiant, its hull burning, its shields nearly gone. The ship surged forward at full speed, straight toward the nearest siege craft. On the Cums, the voice of its captain rang. Out, calm, but filled with fire. For my crew, for our people, for humanity. The Valiant struck like a spear, ramming into the siege ship with unstoppable force. The explosion lit the void, tearing through both vessels in a storm of fire. Shockwave ripped across space, and when the light faded, the siege cannon was gone. For a heartbeat, silence filled the Cums. Then the voices came, fierce and unyielding. Valiant forever. Strike them down for humanity. Human ships surged with renewed fury, slamming into the enemy with fire that seemed endless. But two siege ships still remained, their cannons charging again. Kale's jaw tightened. We need more than courage. We need strategy. Target their power cores. Strike at their weak points. Fighters swarmed the colossal machines, diving through storms of enemy fire. Many were lost, torn apart in flashes of light. But the rest pressed on, weaving through defenses, planting explosives on the glowing cores that pulsed like beating hearts. Ilara held her breath as one by one the cores erupted, tearing holes in the siege ships. The giants shook, their glowing cannons flickering, their massive frames cracking apart, and then with a thunder that shook the stars. The second siege ship exploded. The last one turned, desperate now, but the combined fire of dozens of human ships struck it all at once. Its hull shattered, its light went dark, and finally, silence returned. The colony was safe, but the battle was not over. Enemy fleets still filled the void, though their formation was broken. They hesitated now, shaken by humanity's fury. The long-necked alien commander slammed his claws against the command table. How did they fight like this? They should have broken. They should have fallen. Another alien, his voice uneasy, whispered, "They fight as if their hearts command their ships. It is not logic. It is not reason. It is something else." The commander snarled, "Then we will break their hearts." He ordered his forces into retreat, but not in surrender. It was a regroup, a shift. The enemy pulled back from the colony, vanishing into the dark void, their ships slipping into faster-than-light jumps. Kale exhaled, his shoulders heavy but unbroken. "We've won the first battle, but they will come again. Stronger, smarter." Ilaris, fist clenched, "And we will be ready." Because this was not just a victory, this was a warning. Kale turned to her, his scarred face calm but his eyes burning. "A warning?" She nodded slowly, her voice steady. "They mocked our emotions. They mocked our hearts. But today, the galaxy saw what our fury can do. The Council will see." It too, far away in the alien council chamber, reports filled the hall. Silence fell across the races that had once mocked her. They had laughed at humanity's tears. Now they watched in silence as entire fleets of humans stood united, defeating enemies far stronger than them. For the first time, some of the alien leaders felt something new when they looked upon humanity. Not laughter, not pity, but fear. The battlefield was quiet now, but it was not peace. It was the silence after a storm, the kind of silence that hides another storm waiting to come. Wreckage drifted in space.
Ouch.
Twisted metal glowing faintly as it spun in the void. The human fleet held position, battered but unbroken. Fires burned on damaged ships, medics worked without rest, and engineers raced to repair failing systems. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Kale stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes fixed on the dark horizon of stars. "We won the battle," he said quietly, "but the war has just begun." Alara stood beside him, still shaken by what she had seen. Sacrifice of the valiant, the rage of the pilots, the way entire fleets had arrived as if pulled by one. Heartbeat, it was beautiful and terrifying all at once. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They'll come back stronger." Kale nodded. "And we will be ready." But his voice trailed off. "I fear what price we will pay." Before Alara could answer, the alarms rang. "Enemy transmissions detected," sensor officer shouted. Encoded signals across the sector. They're calling reinforcements. Massive reinforcements. Kale's jaw tightened. "So soon?" "Yes, Admiral. Entire armadas. Their fleets outnumber ours 10-1. The words fell like a stone. Even after their victory, humanity was still only one species among giants. The enemy alliance had ruled. The stars for centuries, their fleets countless. Humanity had fire, but fire alone could be drowned by the endless sea of machines. Elar's chest grew heavy. She could almost hear the laughter of the alien council again, mocking her tears, mocking humanity's weakness. But then she remembered the voices of the soldiers, the faces of the survivors on the colony, the sacrifice of the valiant. She said firmly, "They think numbers will break us. They don't understand. Every time they strike us, they only make us stronger. Every loss fuels our fury." Kale turned to her, studying her eyes. For the first time, he did not see just an ambassador. He saw a leader. "We need more than fury," Kale said. "We need allies." Ilara froze. Allies? The council had mocked her. The other races had spat on humanity, dismissing them as weak. Would any of them dare to stand with humans now? Kale stepped closer, lowering his voice. "They fear us now. Some of them saw the battle. Some of them are already whispering. They laughed at you before, but now they will listen. If you speak again, Alara, not just to the council, but to the galaxy maybe, just maybe, we won't stand alone." Her heart pounded. She remembered the hall filled with laughter, the cruel eyes, the words that cut her deeper than knives. Face them again. But she lifted her chin. "Then I will make them listen." Far across the stars in the enemy's war chamber, the long-necked alien slammed his claws against the table. Unacceptable. They should have been broken. How did they stand against us? How did they win? A shadowy figure, taller than the rest, spoke with a cold voice. "Because you mocked what you did not understand. Humans fight with something more than logic. Something more than survival." The long-necked alien hissed. "Emotions that cannot win a war." But the shadow only leaned closer. "Perhaps it can." The chamber filled with silence. Even among the enemy alliance, doubt had begun to spread. Back on Earth, preparations filled every city. Factories roared day and night, building weapons and ships at a speed never seen before. Families sent their sons and daughters to the fleets. Old veterans, long retired, returned to service. Humanity was rising, but so was the cost. Alara stood in the broadcast chamber, her hands trembling as she prepared to speak, not to the council, not to one race, but to all of them. The transmission would spread across the galaxy, her voice carried. To billions of eyes and ears, the lights came on. The signal went live. She looked straight into the lens, her voice soft but filled with fire. "You mocked us," she said. "You called us weak. You said our emotions would destroy us. You laughed. At our tears, you mocked our fury. Maybe you were right about one thing, yes. We feel. We feel pain, love, rage, and sorrow. But that is why we will never fall." Her eyes burned as she leaned closer. "When our children scream, we fight. When our families suffer, we fight. When we lose everything, we fight harder. We are human. We are not logic without soul. We are not machines without heart. We are fire, and fire only grows when you try to smother it." Her voice rose like thunder. "If you stand with us, you stand with life itself. If you stand against us, then prepare to feel the fury of a species that will never stop, never bow, never break. We are humanity, and the galaxy will remember our wrath." The transmission ended. Silence filled the chamber. Admiral Kale whispered, almost to himself, "That was not a speech. That was a spark, and now the galaxy will burn with it." And far across the stars the galaxy listened, some with fear, some with awe, and some quietly with hope. The galaxy was no longer silent. Ilara's speech had spread across the stars like wildfire. Millions had seen her face, heard her voice, felt the fire in her words. Some alien worlds watched in fear, realizing humanity was not the weak, soft species they once believed. Others watched with wonder, asking themselves a question they had never dared before. What if the humans are right? But the enemy alliance was not shaken for long. In their war chambers, fleets gathered, larger than anything humanity had ever faced. Cold voices echoed through the darkness. "The humans fight with fire, then we will drown their fire. They stand with emotion, we'll break their hearts. This time, no survivors. We erase their fleets, we erase their worlds." So the order was given, unleash everything. On the bridge of the Resolute, alarms blared again. Reports filled the air. Massive enemy fleets approaching Earth's space. Dozens of armadas, thousands of warships. They are coming for the heart of humanity. Admiral Kale's scarred face turned pale. This was not just another battle. This was extinction. He looked at Alara. Her eyes were wide, but steady. She whispered, "They want to break us where it hurts most. They want to burn Earth." Kale nodded grimly. "Then we fight them here. To the last ship, to the last breath." The human fleets gathered in orbit around Earth. It was a sight no one had ever imagined. Thousands of ships. Some new, some old, some barely holding together. Families across Earth watched the sky fill with burning trails as vessels launched. Into the void, The people did not cry in fear. They stood in silence, strong, knowing their sons and daughters were going to fight not just for Earth, but for all of humanity. In the command room, Ilara stood before the massive galaxy map. Red lights spread across the display, marking the enemy fleets advancing from every direction. Her hands shook. There were too many. Logic said they could not win, but humans had never been slaves to logic. "Send the message," she said. The signal went out, carrying her voice to every ship in the fleet. "Today, they come for our heart. Today, they think they will break us. But listen to my, Earth is not just a planet. Earth is every mother who waits for her child to return. Yes. Earth is every soldier who swore never to fall. Earth is every dream, every tear, every memory we carry in our hearts. And today, we do not fight for survival. We fight for who we are." The fleet answered with a roar across the comms. Voices of millions bound as one. The enemy came, from the darkness of space. Their armadas emerged, covering the stars with steel. War drums of silence beat as entire sectors of the sky turned black with their numbers. The long-necked commander stood on his flagship, his voice sharp with hatred. "Burn Earth, leave nothing." The first strike came a wall of fire that shook human defenses. Ships exploded in waves, debris scattering like broken stars. The sky above Earth became a storm of burning wreckage, but humanity did not break. Fighters launched in swarms, darting through enemy fire like sparks in a hurricane. Capital ships locked shields, holding the line even as their hulls cracked apart. Missiles screamed through the void, tearing into enemy formations. Admiral Kale's voice thundered across the fleet. "Do not give them Earth. Make them pay for every inch." The battle was chaos. The void itself burned. Ilara gripped the railing, her knuckles white. She wanted to close her eyes, but she forced herself to watch. She had asked them to fight. She had lit this fire. She would not look away. Now, suddenly, a new alarm rang. "Admiral," a voice shouted. "The Council fleet's there moving." Kale froze. "What? To help us?" The officer shook his head. "No, sir. They've chosen to stand with the enemy." Lyra's heart dropped. The Alien Council, the very leaders who mocked her, had cast their decision. They would not remain neutral. They would not ally with humanity. They had betrayed them. The display lit up with fresh enemy signals, Council fleets joining the war against humanity. Kale slammed his fist against the table, his voice sharp with rage. "So they've shown their true faces." Ilara felt the weight of betrayal crush her chest. They had laughed at her, called her weak. And now they had chosen to destroy her people completely. For a moment, despair whispered inside her. Maybe they were right. Maybe humans cannot win against this. But then she remembered the valiant, the sacrifice, the fire in every soldier's voice. She stood tall, her voice cutting through the comms. "They think this betrayal will break us. They think more fleets will make us surrender. But hear me, every betrayal only feeds our fire. Every enemy only gives us another reason to fight." The comms exploded with shouts of rage and defiance. Humanity's fleet surged forward again, slamming into the enemy lines with even greater fury. The sky above Earth was burning, but humanity was not falling. And for the first time, even the Council would learn what it meant to mock the fury of humankind. The sky above Earth was fire. Flames lit the blackness as ships burned, their hulls breaking apart in silence. Entire squadrons were gone, wiped out by the storm of enemy cannons. The human fleet fought with fury, but the enemy's numbers were endless. Now the Council fleets had joined them. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his uniform, torn blood on his forehead, but his voice steady. "Hold the line. Every ship counts. Every second we hold gives Earth a chance." But he knew the truth. The line was breaking. The iron flame erupted in fire, its core exploding. The Guardian was torn apart by enemy fire. The colony fleets that had rushed to Earth were being cut down, one by one. On the ground, the people of Earth stared at the burning skies. Families huddled together, not in fear, but in grim silence. They knew this might be the end, yet none begged for surrender. In the command room, Alara's heart ached with every report. Thousands lost, millions more in danger. She pressed her hands against the table, her nails digging into the steel. "How many ships remain?" she whispered. The officer swallowed. "Less than half, ma'am. And falling fast." Hale turned to her, his voice low. "If the line breaks, they will bombard. Earth directly, cannot hold forever." For the first time since this war began, Alara felt the shadow of despair. Was this how it ended? Humanity mocked, betrayed, and finally erased? Then a voice came over the coms. "This is Captain Rourke of the Stormbreaker. We may fall, but we will not go quietly. We are preparing a suicide run. For Earth." Another voice followed. "This is Squadron 4. Out of ammo, but not out of fire. We'll ram them if we must." More voices poured in, captains, pilots, soldiers. None spoke of retreat. None spoke of surrender. Alara's tears fell, but her voice grew sharp. "No, you will not fall in silence. You will fight with fury, and the galaxy will hear you roar." She opened a wide transmission, her words echoing across every human ship. "They came to burn our home. They came to erase our heart. And yes, we are outnumbered. Yes, we are wounded. But here, me so long as even one of us fights, humanity lives. So long as one ship still burns, humanity's fire cannot die. Let them come. Let them drown in the fury of our hearts." The coms erupted with a single word, shouted by thousands of voices at once. Humanity. The battle raged harder. Human. Ships struck with reckless courage, tearing into enemy formations. Small frigates rammed into massive cruisers, detonating in blinding explosions. Fighters with no ammunition still dove at enemy ships, forcing them into chaos. The enemy expected surrender. Instead, they found madness. Instead, they found a fire that refused to go out. On the flagship, the long-necked alien commander hissed, his eyes wide with disbelief. "They should have broken. They should have fallen. Why do they fight harder when they are dying?" One of his aides spoke in a trembling voice. "Because, Commander, this is what the human woman said. They fight for love, for rage, for hope. We cannot match this," the commander roared, slamming his claws into the table. "Then we erase them. If the fleets cannot do it, we burn the planet itself." Massive enemy warships turned their cannons toward Earth. Energy built in their cores, light growing brighter than a star. If they fired, Earth would be shattered in minutes. On the Resolute, alarms screamed. Planet burners charging. Kale's eyes widened. If they fire, it's over. Alara felt her chest tighten. She could not breathe. This was the end. But then something happened. From the far edge of the system, new signals appeared. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Kale's eyes widened. What? What is this? The screens lit up with fresh contacts, unknown ships. It's not human, alien. And then the signals became clear. Fleets of different races, worlds that had once mocked humanity, worlds that had once stayed silent. They were here. One transmission broke. Through the voice of an alien leader, "We mocked you, called you weak. But now we see the truth. You fight not for conquest, but for heart. And for that we will fight with you." Ship after ship declared their allegiance. Species that had once laughed now turned their weapons against the common enemy. Alara's tears blurred her vision. But this time, they were tears of hope. Kale's voice shook with disbelief. They came. Alara whispered, "The spark has spread. The fire is no longer just ours. The galaxy is seen as sand now. It burns with us." The enemy's planet burners had no time to fire. The new fleet struck, their combined fury ripping through the enemy lines. The tide had turned, but the war was not finished. The greatest battle was yet to come. The sky above Earth was no longer only fire. It was hope, all around the planet. Fleets of alien ships emerged from the void. Some were small, fragile craft from worlds long ignored. Others were mighty warships from species that once sat silent in the council halls. Now they flew together, united not by fear, but by something greater, the fire humanity had lit inside. Them, on the resolute Admiral Kale's voice carried across every channel. The galaxy stands with us. Humanity is no longer alone. Ilara's chest tightened. She had dreamed of this moment, but never believed it would come. Her voice shook as she whispered, "We are not weak, never were." The coms filled with voices, alien commanders pledging to fight, soldiers from other worlds shouting their battle cries alongside humanity's. The enemy alliance faltered. Their commanders screamed for order, but their fleets hesitated. Had never faced unity like this. They had never faced a fire that spread from world to world, but the long-necked enemy commander did not yield. His voice rang out, sharp with hatred. "Fools! You join them? Then you will die with them. Fire everything. Burn Earth. Burn humanity. Burn every traitor who stands with them." The enemy's planet burners charged again, massive cannons glowing. With deadly light, but this time it did not fire unchallenged. Allied fleets struck from every side, their weapons slamming into the giant cannons before they could unleash their destruction. Human fighters darted through the chaos, planting charges, diving through storms of enemy fire. The void became a storm of explosions, brighter and louder than any battle before. Kale's voice roared, "All fleets forward! End this war now!" The human ships led the charge, our allies beside them. The Stormbreaker cut straight into an enemy dreadnought, its cannons tearing through steel like paper. Alien warships unleashed storms of energy, breaking enemy formations. Together they carved a path straight toward the enemy flagship, the ship of the long-necked commander. On its bridge, the commander hissed, his eyes filled with fury, "I will not be defeated by humans." But Ilara's voice reached him through the open channel. Calm, steady, unbroken. "You mocked our tears. You mocked our hearts. But today you learn that love, rage, and hope are the strongest weapons in the galaxy. Today you fall not to logic, not to reason, but to humanity's fury." The enemy commander screamed in rage. The ship unleashed its full arsenal, cannons blazing. But it was too late. The Resolute, the Guardian survivors, the fleets of allies, and the last of humanity's ships poured everything they had into that one vessel. The void lit up as a storm of fire tore through the flagship's shields, its hull cracking apart. Inside, the commander's voice was lost in static. A final explosion ripped the ship to pieces, scattering its remains into the darkness. For a moment, silence. Then the cheers came. Across the coms, across every fleet, voices roared in victory. Humans and aliens together shouted as one. The enemy broke, their surviving ships fleeing into the void. The war was over. Earth stood battered, but alive. In the aftermath, Ilara stood once more in the great council chamber, the same place where she had once been mocked, where her tears had been laughed at, where her words had been dismissed as weakness. Now, the chamber was silent. Alien leaders who once sneered now lowered their heads. Some avoided her gaze. Others stared in awe. She spoke, her voice calm but carrying the weight of everything they had endured. "You called emotions weakness? You mocked what you did not understand. But today, humanity has shown you that our hearts are not chains. They are wings. Our tears are not weakness. They are fire. And our fury is not destruction. It is strength." She looked around the chamber, her eyes sharp. "If you wish to build a future, learn this. Cold logic can build walls, but only heart can build hope. Only together can we face what waits beyond the stars." No one laughed this time. Admiral Kale, standing at her side, placed his scarred hand on the table. "Remember this battle. Remember who stood when no one else would. Remember humanity not as weak, but as fire." The chamber remained in silence. And slowly, one by one, alien leaders bowed their heads. Ilara closed her eyes, her tears falling. Freely. But this time, they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of victory. For the galaxy had mocked her emotions until she unleashed humanity's fury. And now, the stars themselves carried the echo of humankind's roar.